Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm here with another story, a story based on COVID-19. When COVID began to spread, the whole world suddenly stopped. At first, people ignored it, thinking it was nothing serious. But later, everyone realized it wasn't simple at all. Slowly, everything became silent. Many parents, children, lovers, and partners lost someone they loved. It was a tragic time that changed our lives forever. Today's story is full of emotions. You'll not only learn new words, but also feel what people went through during those silent days. So, let's begin. Before the world learned to fear its own breath, before masks covered smiles, there was life, simple, noisy, imperfect, but alive. The year was 2019. The streets were full, markets were loud, and people were too busy to notice how blessed they were. Children ran to school with half-tied shoelaces, mothers scolded them lovingly, and young couples argued over silly things and made up before sunset. In one corner of the city lived Meera, a young nurse in a government hospital. Her days were long, but her smile was constant. She believed healing was not only about medicine, but also about kindness. Every patient who came to her bed left feeling a little lighter. She lived alone in a small rented flat. Her parents stayed in another town. Every evening, she would video call them, her mother always reminding her, "Don't skip dinner, Meera," and her father asking, "When will you come home next?" She would smile and promise, "Soon." But she didn't know that soon, the meaning of home would change for everyone. A few blocks away, Arav, a young musician, was preparing for his first live concert. His guitar was old, but his dreams were new. Music was his heartbeat, the way he connected with people, even strangers. He often played on the balcony, and neighbors would stop to listen. There was something healing about his songs, as if he sang from a place beyond pain. In another part of the city, lived Reena, a mother of two. Her husband, Vikram, worked as a cab driver. They didn't have much, but they had laughter, and that was enough. Every evening, the family would sit together for dinner, no phones, no distractions, just stories and laughter echoing in their small room. And then there was Kabir, only 8 years old. He loved drawing, but his favorite subject was his parents. He would draw them holding hands, smiling, standing in front of a small house. He didn't understand money, or sickness, or death. He only knew love, the kind that lived in bedtime stories and morning hugs. Across the city, in an old apartment, Dr. Mehta, a retired physician, lived alone. He had spent 40 years saving lives, but now, no one visited him. He often sat near the window with a cup of tea, watching the world rush by. He told himself he was fine with loneliness, but deep inside, he missed the sound of human voices, laughter, footsteps, even the noise of life. And far away, in a small NGO office, Ananya, a social worker, was busy arranging food for orphan children. She believed kindness was contagious, just like fear. Every night she prayed, not for herself, but for the world to stay gentle. None of them knew that in a few months, their lives, and millions of others, would collide through one invisible thread, a virus. It wouldn't care about rich or poor, young or old. It would touch every heart, test every bond, and change every dream. That night, the city slept peacefully, unaware that its silence was coming. The streets still glowed with lights. Music still played in distant cafes. Families still planned vacations. And children still dreamed of tomorrow. But tomorrow would never look the same again. It started with whispers. A strange illness in another country. A few headlines on the last page of newspapers. A conversation that people didn't take seriously. At first, no one imagined it would cross oceans, enter homes, and change destinies. Life continued normally, until it didn't. Within weeks, the whispers grew louder. Cases began appearing in cities far away, then in nearby towns, then in their own neighborhoods. The government announced the first lockdown. And just like that, the world that was full of noise became silent. Shops closed. Schools shut down. Temples, markets, playgrounds, everything locked behind metal shutters. Streets that once echoed with laughter now stood empty like abandoned memories. Families stayed indoors, peeking through windows like strangers in their own world. Mira, the nurse, felt the change before anyone else. Her hospital, once busy but manageable, suddenly overflowed. Patients arrived gasping for breath, frightened, alone. No visitors allowed. No comforting hugs. Just faces hidden behind masks and eyes full of fear. Mira worked day and night. Her hands shook, not from tiredness, but from the weight of responsibility. Every time she touched a patient, she silently prayed she wouldn't carry the virus back to her family. Video calls became shorter, her mother crying on the screen, her father trying to act strong. She wanted to go home. But home was too far, and duty was too close. Across the city, Arav, the young musician, was trapped in his rented room. His guitar lay in the corner, waiting to be played, but his heart felt heavy. He lived alone, his parents were in another state. Borders were sealed, travel was banned. Every day he called home. Every day he said he was fine. But every night, he cried quietly, missing the comfort of his mother's touch and his father's warm scolding. Loneliness was another kind of virus, one no medicine could cure. For Reena, the mother of two, the lockdown felt like a storm. Her husband Vikram's cab was their only income. With the roads empty, he had no work. Their savings were small. Their responsibilities were huge. She tried to hide her worry from her children. She cooked less, served more. She smiled, even when she was breaking inside. That is what mothers do, they bleed silently so their children never see the wound. And little Kabir, only 8 years old, couldn't understand what was happening. Why couldn't he go to school? Why couldn't he play outside? Why did his parents keep wiping his hands again and again? He drew pictures of masks without knowing what fear looked like. All he wanted was for things to be normal again. Dr. Mehta, the retired doctor living alone, felt the deepest silence. Earlier, he would at least listen to children playing in the building courtyard. Now, even the birds seemed quieter. He wanted to help, to go back to the hospital, to fight the virus, but his age kept him locked inside his home. He spent hours staring at his old medical certificates on the wall, memories of a life that suddenly felt far away. And Ananya, the social worker, saw something the world didn't see. Behind closed doors, families were breaking. Hunger was rising. Fear was spreading. She tried delivering food to those who needed it the most, despite her own family begging her to stay home. People need me, she whispered to herself, especially now. Slowly, the fear spread faster than the virus. Every cough sounded dangerous. Every headline felt like a nightmare. Every phone call brought news of someone falling sick. People started to pray more, cry more, love more, because no one knew which day would be their last normal day. The world didn't end, but it paused. Completely. And in that pause, every heartbeat carried a silent question, will life ever be the same again? The virus moved like a shadow, quiet, unseen, but everywhere. Hospitals became war zones. Ambulances became the new sound of fear. Families prayed that their doors would be spared, but loss does not knock before entering. It happened slowly at first, one family here, another family there. But soon, every street had a story no one wanted to tell. Myra's battle in the hospital. For Mira, the nurse, each day felt heavier than the last. She watched patients come in breathing, and leave in silence. She held hands of strangers as they took their last breaths because their families were not allowed inside. She whispered prayers in the ears of unconscious patients, hoping some part of them could still hear. She stopped counting the number of people she lost. But she remembered each face, each pair of frightened eyes, each unfinished story. Sometimes she went to the bathroom, covered her mouth with her gloved hands, and cried quietly, not because she was weak, but because she was human. One night, she called her parents. She wanted to hear their voices. But her mother's tone trembled. Her father coughed slightly. Something felt wrong. Myra's heart feared what her mind refused to accept. Arav's world turns dark across the city. Arav was battling a loneliness that became heavier each day. His father fell sick first. Then his mother. Hospitals were full. Medicines were scarce. Beds were unavailable. He tried everything, calling doctors, begging authorities, praying louder than he had ever prayed. But distance is cruel. He could not go home. He could not hold their hands. He could not say the words he wanted to say. All he had was his phone, and one morning, the phone rang with the news that shattered him. He stared at the wall for hours, guitar untouched, eyes dry because even tears refused to come. Grief is not always loud. Sometimes it sits quietly inside you and eats you from within. Reena's family breaks for Reena, the mother of two. The battle was different, a battle against hunger, hope, and fate. Her husband Vikram went out one day to help a neighbor who needed a ride to the hospital. He came home tired, coughing softly. He said it was nothing. He hugged his children. He ate dinner with them. But 2 days later, he could barely breathe. By the time help arrived, it was too late. Reena found herself standing outside the hospital, her children holding her hands, not understanding why their father wasn't coming back. She wanted to scream, but she didn't. She couldn't. Her children needed her to be strong, even when her own heart was shattering. Little Kabir's innocent questions, and then there was Kabir, only 8. Both his parents fell sick within the same week, his mother first, then his father. He stayed with a neighbor while they were taken to the hospital. Every evening, he waited at the door, clutching a drawing he made, a drawing of their family holding hands. He kept asking, when will they come home? But no one had the courage to answer. When the news finally came, Kabir did not cry. He simply sat down quietly, as if trying to understand a word far too heavy for a child. He held the drawing closer to his chest, as if that paper was the only thing holding his world together. Dr. Mehta's old wounds open. In his lonely apartment, Dr. Mehta watched the news every day. He saw young doctors collapsing from exhaustion. He saw the fear in the eyes of health workers. He saw people dying on stretchers outside hospitals. He felt helpless. For the first time in his life, he wished he were younger, stronger, able to return to the battlefield. Every night he sat near the window, listening to ambulances rush through empty streets, thinking about the lives he once saved, and the ones he could not save now. Ananya's heart breaks for strangers. Ananya, the social worker, had never seen suffering like this. She met children who lost parents, mothers who lost sons, families who lost hope. Some people died in hospitals. Some died at home. Some died waiting for help that never reached. Ananya wrote their names in a notebook, not because she had a reason to, but because she wanted the world to remember that each name was a story, a life, a love, a whole universe. Loss was everywhere. Grief floated in the air like dust. People inhaled it with every breath. The virus took away bodies, but grief took away dreams. The world learned that silence can be the loudest sound, and absence can be the heaviest presence. But in that darkness, tiny sparks of humanity were still alive. People who still cared, still helped, still loved, and soon, those sparks would grow into the light that carries the world toward hope. After months of darkness, something unexpected began to happen. The world, though wounded, began to breathe again. The virus was still there, fear was still there, but slowly, quietly, humanity started to rise from the ashes. Not through grand miracles, but through small acts of courage. Meera finds strength in the smallest moments. In the hospital, Meera continued her battle. Exhaustion lived in her bones, but so did determination. One morning, she was assigned a new patient, an elderly woman who could barely breathe. Her children couldn't enter the ward. She was frightened, clutching a small photo of her family. Mira held her hand gently and whispered, "You are not alone." The woman looked at her through tired eyes and whispered back, "Thank you, beta." Something warm moved inside Myra's heart. For the first time in months, she felt she wasn't just fighting a virus, she was fighting for humanity. And every recovered patient reminded her that not all stories were ending in loss. Hope was small, but it was alive. Arav finds his voice again. After losing his parents, Arav had drowned in silence. His guitar gathered dust. His music died inside him. His voice felt locked somewhere deep within grief. But one evening, while sitting on his balcony, he saw something unexpected. In the building next door, a little girl was crying. Her father, a delivery worker, had fallen sick. Her mother was in quarantine. She looked up at Arav's balcony as if searching for something. And without knowing why, Arav picked up his guitar. His fingers trembled. His voice cracked. But he started singing, softly, gently, like someone learning to breathe again. The little girl stopped crying. Her eyes widened. She listened. Soon, neighbors opened their windows. Lights came on. People stood silently, letting the music touch the places words could not reach. That night, Arav realized something: music may not bring his parents back, but it could bring someone else comfort. And in healing others, he began healing himself. Reena learns to stand on her own. For Reena, life felt like a puzzle missing too many pieces. She cried when her children slept. She worried when they ate too little. She trembled when she checked the remaining money. But mothers have a hidden strength, the kind that rises only when everything else falls apart. She began selling homemade snacks from her window. Neighbors who once ignored her now supported her. Someone ordered extra so she could earn more. Someone slipped money under the box without taking food. Humanity had finally woken up. Her children watched her with new eyes. They saw not a widow, but a warrior. Kabir finds a new family. Little Kabir stayed in the care of neighbors. He spoke less. He drew more. Every drawing had the same two figures, his parents, smiling. One day, Ananya, the social worker, visited the neighborhood. She knelt down in front of Kabir and asked softly, "Beta, what do you want?" He didn't ask for toys, or chocolates, or cartoons. He whispered, "I want someone to hold my hand when I sleep." Something broke inside Ananya's heart. She took Kabir's small hand in hers, and in that moment, she silently promised him, "You are not going to grow up alone." Efforts began. Paperwork started. A network of people came together to ensure Kabir would have a real family again. Loss had taken everything from him, but strangers were ready to give him a new beginning. Dr. Mehta finds purpose again. In his lonely home, Dr. Mehta watched the world from behind glass. One morning, he saw a young delivery boy collapse outside the gate. Without thinking, his old instincts returned. He rushed out, checked the boy's pulse, gave him first aid, and called an ambulance. Word spread in the society. "There is a doctor here, a real doctor." Soon, people began calling him for small problems, fear, anxiety, minor symptoms. Sometimes they just needed someone to talk to. Dr. Mehta realized he was not useless. He still had value. He still mattered. Loneliness began to fade, not because the world changed, but because he stepped back into the world. Ananya witnesses humanity rise. For Ananya, these small stories were miracles. She saw families sharing food with neighbors. She saw strangers helping elderly people buy medicines. She saw masked volunteers delivering oxygen, even at midnight. She saw light returning to places that had forgotten what hope looked like. She once wrote in her notebook, "The virus killed many, but kindness saved more than we know." The world was still broken. The virus was still strong. But people were learning to be stronger. They cried, but they also cared. They lost, but they also lifted each other. They feared, but they also hoped. And slowly, the silent world began to whisper again. Not in panic, not in pain, but in courage. The beginning of hope had arrived. The world was still broken. Time moved forward, slowly but surely. The world was still wearing masks, still sanitizing hands, still praying for safety, but a new kind of light had started to glow in people's hearts. It was not the old normal. It was something softer, something wiser, something born from the deepest pain. It was the beginning of healing. Meera learns to breathe again for months. Meera lived inside the hospital walls, a soldier fighting an invisible war. But one morning, something changed. A patient she had cared for, a young woman who had been critical for weeks, finally stood up on her own feet. She cried tears of joy while holding Myra's hands. That small victory, that brave smile, felt like a reward for every night Meera cried silently in the nurse's room. When the situation slowly improved, Meera finally took a leave and went home. Her parents opened the door with trembling hands. They looked older, thinner, yet filled with pride. Meera hugged them after months. That single hug felt like returning to life. Her mother whispered, "You saved so many lives, but today, you saved ours by coming home." Meera realized healing begins with love, the kind that waits patiently at the door. Arav turns grief into strength. Arav's music slowly returned. He began recording small songs from his room, songs about longing, loss, and healing. People who heard them wrote messages. "You saved me. I was depressed, your music helped. I lost my father too. Thank you." For the first time, Arav understood that pain can either break you, or it can shape you into someone stronger. He started a small online concert to raise funds for children who lost their parents during the pandemic. He dedicated every song to his mother and father. Their memory became his anchor. Not an anchor that drowned him, but an anchor that kept him steady. Reena's family finds a way forward. Reena, the widow who had once believed her world was ending, began to stand firm like a mountain. Her snack business grew. Neighbors supported her. People ordered from her out of respect for her courage. Her children, once small and scared, now studied harder. They wanted to make their father proud. One evening, her son placed his tiny hand on her shoulder and said, "Ma, we are okay because you are strong." Reena cried that night, not from grief, but from gratitude. She had lost her partner, but she had gained a new purpose, to build a life where her children would never feel alone. Kabir finds his forever home. Little Kabir, who once waited at the door for parents who would never return, was now living with a new family. A gentle couple adopted him, people who had also faced loss during the pandemic and understood what loneliness felt like. Kabir's new mother tucked him into bed every night. His new father read him stories. And slowly, his drawings changed. Instead of drawing only his lost parents, he began drawing 4 people, himself and his new family. One evening, he whispered, "I think I can be happy again." For a child who had lost everything, this was nothing less than a miracle. Dr. Mehta becomes a guide again. The retired doctor, Dr. Mehta, found his purpose revived. He could not fight on the front line, but he became a guide for hundreds of frightened families. He provided online consultations. He offered emotional support. He taught people how to care for the sick at home. He no longer felt alone. He felt useful. He felt valued. When life gave him another chance to serve, he chose to rise, even with trembling hands. Ananya witnesses the rebirth of humanity, and Ananya, the social worker, continued her mission. She created support groups. She helped orphan children like Kabir. She ensured food reached families like Reena's. She gave courage to lonely elders like Dr. Mehta. Her notebook filled with names, not as a record of loss, but as a reminder of lives saved, lives touched, lives rebuilt. She wrote, "Pain broke the world, but kindness stitched it back together." The world after the storm eventually, vaccines came. Hospitals emptied. Children returned to schools. Shops reopened. People breathed a little easier. But no one forgot. Not the fear. Not the losses. Not the nights filled with silent prayers. Yet, From this suffering emerged a truth, one that echoed in every home, every street, every life. Love is stronger than fear. Humanity is stronger than any virus. Hope survives everything. The pandemic took many things, smiles, dreams, people, time. But it also revealed a hidden strength inside ordinary people. A nurse who held strangers' hands. A singer who healed other hearts while his own broke silently. A mother who stood up after losing her husband. A child who learned to smile again. An old doctor who rediscovered his purpose. A social worker who reminded the world that kindness matters. Their stories were different, but their journey was the same: loss, struggle, courage, healing, and hope. The world did not go back to what it was, but it became something softer, something more human. And as life moved forward, each heart carried a quiet promise: we survived. We changed. We will never forget. And we will always choose hope.